Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting, special council meeting of Wednesday, March 25th, 2020 to order. First off, are there any disclosures of interest? Seeing none here, and Councillor Vane is joining us remotely. Councillor Vane, any disclosures of interest?
No, not at all.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. First up, we have report from Stephen Gruninger, report Finance 2004. Stephen?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this report is dealing with some relief measures that the town can look to implement during these unprecedented times with the COVID pandemic. So as a result of the widespread closure of businesses and the declaration of the state of emergency by the province of Ontario, many Grimsby businesses and residents are beginning to be impacted financially. And some businesses and residents may find it difficult to pay their taxes. So I put together in the report some options for council to consider in helping to provide some relief to ratepayers. So I'm just going to jump right into the analysis. So first of all, what we're looking to do is for the existing pre-authorized payment plans that we're looking to maintain those plans. So we offer two plans currently. There's a monthly plan, which funds are deducted from ratepayers' accounts on the 15th of the month. And then we also have an installment plan where funds are withdrawn from ratepayers' accounts on the installment due date. We would like to maintain those plans and keep those plans operating as usual. It's important that for those who can pay, I think it's important that they be able to do so in terms of cash flow for the town. For those who can't maintain their plan, they can contact the town and we can remove them from those plans if they can't make those payments. So one of the options to look at in terms of providing some relief is to waive tax penalty and interest charges on current taxes. So what I mean by current taxes is taxes that are due, that become due and payable in 2020, and not for taxes that are in arrears from prior years. So the town applies penalty and interest at the beginning of every month for overdue balances at the rate of 1.5% per month. In order to help alleviate the burden, staff are recommending that penalty and interest charges be waived on current taxes for 60 days, starting from May 1st until June 30th. So that would be the waiver of interest for the month of May and for the month of June. At that time, once we get through June, staff will come back and I guess we'll evaluate the situation as to where we are and where the pandemic is. And we can always go back and review these measures at a later date if they need to be extended or if we're in a better situation. This is the measure that the majority of, if not all, municipalities within the Niagara region are offering to provide relief to their ratepayers. Another option is to defer the installment dates. So the next installment date is May 1st. So what we would most likely do is defer that payment until August 1st. And then the final tax bill installments, which there are two, they would most likely be deferred until October and December. So the main advantage of deferring the due date is that it gives ratepayers additional time to make arrangements to pay their property tax. But there are also some disadvantages. First, it imposes a balloon payment onto ratepayers, and that approximately 3/4 of their taxes will become due and payable towards the end of the year. And second is by deferring the due dates, the town will be in a position where very little cash is coming into the town, but payments still need to be made by the town. These payments include large transfers to the region and school boards, and payments that require the town to maintain its operations. We don't know at this point how long the pandemic will continue, So it is very important that the town has adequate cash flow to maintain sufficient liquidity and to maintain operations during this unprecedented time. Some other measures that we're looking at is to waive penalty and interest charges or penalty charge on past due water accounts from April 1st until June 30th. Also, waive the transfer of past due water accounts to taxes. Waive interest charges on accounts receivable, and waive NSF fees on tax on water payments that are returned. So the town would waive NSF charges, but a ratepayers bank may also charge NSF charges, and those won't be covered by the town. Financial impact. So by putting in place, so the town is recommending that we go with the waiver of interest for the 60 days, from May 1st till June 30th. So the cost would be approximately $54,000 for the lost interest revenue, about $6,600 for lost water revenue, and about $550 for lost NSF fees. So that's my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks for your presentation, Stephen. Councillor Cadwell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you, Stephen, and your staff too for coming up. Which I feel this is a very good report. It gives some relief to the taxpayers and the residents, business residents of the community, and I will be supporting it. I think it's a great report. Again, just my question to you, Stephen, is in our collecting of taxes, we also collect for the region and the DSBN. How will these deferrals or anything, how will that affect how we pay our taxes to especially the timelines, as you mentioned, extending May till August, and then, how does that, is there any effect to those other two
Sure.
people?
So we're not actually looking at deferring payments. So taxes would still be due for ratepayers by May 1st. What that allows is, again, for those ratepayers who can make their payments, that's what we're trying to encourage, because the town still needs funds to operate. So it would be great for those who can pay to continue to pay. And that's why we're not looking at extending the due date. Extending the due date would make it difficult for the town to meet its obligations to the region and to the school boards. At this time, the region and the school boards have not indicated that they will be moving their due dates. And you're looking at potentially, almost $15 million in payments that would happen just after, sometime in early May.
Thank you.
Councillor Vardy?
Thank you. We have, Stephen, a $5 million line of credit. Now, I'd like to know what kind of, I have a few questions here, but what kind of interest would we be paying on that line of credit if we had to use it in order to cover off some of our payments?
Right now, with interest rates having fallen considerably, the interest rate is actually very good right now. It's prime-based, and I can't exactly remember just offhand the exact what it is. It's prime, I believe, prime plus a number. Again, the rate would be...
That's specific.
Yeah, 1% maybe, something like
All right.
that. So again, prime rate is very low right now, so the interest rate is very good. The issue with going into the line of credit is that we don't know how long this situation will last. And once you fall into the line of credit, we don't know when we're going to get out of the deficit position. So what could happen is that we use up our full amount and we run out of money to pay for just normal operating expenses. So I think at this point, when we're in a situation as unprecedented as this, the province has declared an emergency, that I think it's important for the town to maintain its cash flow and to be as liquid as possible, to have cash available. By dipping into a line of credit, we're in a negative position, and it could be very difficult for the town to operate.
Considering that cash flow is such an issue, can I recommend that we have a discussion about the budget, given that we should be considering a hiring freeze at this point to reduce some of our expenditures. We fortunately, I don't believe we've had to lay anyone off, which is a much more favorable position than many other companies, but I think it would certainly send the wrong message, at the very least, to be hiring new people. And I think that there's probably some other things that we could look at doing next year, given that this has now become a crisis year. I think we should, only be doing some of those things that are really going to impact our future negatively if we don't take some action now. So I'm thinking particularly of the planning studies. Thank you.
Actually, procedurally, yes, Councillor Bain?
I think I'm going to agree with what you're going to say. I believe this special meeting was called just to deal with the report from the staff. I don't believe there was any talk of opening up the budget again, which I think is just going to help us bankrupt the town if we continue this silliness. But I think we're out of line to even consider talking about the budget at this point.
Thank you. Again, I agree with Councillor Bain, and at this point of time, because this is a special council meeting, we can't really go back to the budget that has been passed already. I would be in favor of a hiring freeze, and we can address that, in my opinion, at the April 6th meeting, which is a regular council meeting. And if anyone does have a notice of motion tonight, I will certainly allow that later in the meeting to be put forth. So any other questions for Stephen right now? Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Stephen. Just to make sure I'm abundantly clear, the recommendation from staff is to waive the interest and penalty charge if people are late in paying the April 1st due date. Is that correct? May 1st, sorry, May 1st.
That's
May
correct,
1st.
May 1st, yes.
And they'll have till June the 30th, and then the next installment is August the 1st. Is that correct?
The final bill, the next installment would be the first Friday in August.
Sorry.
Yeah,
you're
that's
right.
okay.
So
That's okay.
March, so it's March
Yeah.
and May. Where did I get August?
March and May, yes.
Yeah.
May
Is
1st is the next installment date.
Of the first half of the year.
Of the interim bill, that's correct.
The first half, yeah. And then August is part of the
Final bill.
final bill. And so if people are still struggling, we could look at that at another time, could we not? So this is just a measure in case some of us are struggling to pay that second installment of the first half of the year.
That's correct.
Okay.
So maybe I should clarify a little bit more again. Maybe it wasn't very clear. So for now we're heading into April. So on April 15th, there will be, for those who are signed up for the pre-authorized payment plan, funds will come out of ratepayers' accounts who signed up for the monthly plan. So those funds would still come out. And that gives us a little bit of cash, which is great. And I would, like I said, I would encourage those who can still pay to continue to pay, to remain on the plan.
That's 26% of us as residents, did you say in your report, that are on the pre-authorized payment?
That's correct.
26%.
That's
That's
correct.
1 quarter right there.
That's 1 quarter, right.
Which is that's both the pre-authorized payment plans, not just, yeah.
That's both.
Both, okay.
So then in May, on May 1st, the installment due date, we would also have, for those enrolled in the installment date plan, we would have funds coming into the town for people on that plan. And then again on May 15th, for those enrolled in the monthly plan. So if you couldn't make your payment, your tax payment for May 1st on the installment date, no interest would be charged for the month of May. No interest, if you were still, if it was still unpaid come June, again, no interest would be paid, would be charged from June, on June 1st.
Charging interest.
It would, we would start to charge again come July unless council decides to extend the waiver of interest.
And maybe it's a small group of people that are struggling, and we'll know better then. You'll be able to give us another report.
I really hope we'll know and we'll have a better sense of where this is, and hopefully that things will be back to normal. That would be great.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Frick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you for, I know you guys put a lot of time in, a lot of work on this particular report, and it's, I think, what a lot of us were hoping for and expecting. So I certainly endorse the recommendations, and I just want to make sure they got them all clear. Under the other measures, we're willing to waive the penalty charge on past due water accounts. Yes. Waive the transfer of past due water accounts to taxes.
So yes, we would not charge, or we would not transfer past due water accounts. So we transfer past due water accounts when I believe they are 2 months in arrears. If they're still not paid, it gets added to your tax account. We're going to stop that process for the time being. So any unpaid amounts in water would remain on your water account.
Okay. Am I on? Okay. And waive interest charges on past due accounts receivable. I guess that would refer to a lot of businesses and so on and so forth. So that's good for them. And this is on a voluntary basis as well. I mean, it's not something we're inflicting on everybody. It's if they can pay, we want them to pay. So it's voluntary, which is good. And this will be effective May 1st. I think that's when these tax bills start to circulate.
So the taxes, we look to start the waiver of interest for May 1st. All the other measures would commence April 1st to June 30th.
Okay.
And I can try to explain the reason why. At that time, when that installment was due, for those who had not yet paid their taxes, there really wasn't any relationship to COVID at that time. It wasn't until more middle of March where the province declared a state of emergency and COVID really became a much bigger issue that affected one's ability to pay their taxes. So that's why we've decided to commence the interest waiving as of May 1st.
You, if I might continue.
Yes.
So what we're doing here is pretty much in line with a lot of what the other municipalities are doing in the region as well, and outside the region for that matter. So we're kind of mirror imaging what a lot of the other municipalities are doing. Okay, just want to put on record. I know we're not going to be talking about the budget tonight, or we don't want to, or can't, because it's a special meeting. But certainly we do have to look at our cost overall, and I know that Councillor have already mentioned possible layoffs, but I'm not big on layoffs, but I'm sure that there's other ways of going about that if we get to that discussion. For example, taking a pay cut and not laying anybody off. Certainly we should freeze hiring. I totally 100% agree with that, because somewhere down the road we need to pay for this is going to cost us a lot of money. So, sorry.
I think it's certainly.
It's relative.
Councillor Sharp? Well,
I'm
yeah,
finished
it's
anyways.
It's certainly off of what's on this
Yes.
motion, so it's.
I'm looking further down the road, but okay.
I think that's something we can talk about April 6th at our regular council meeting.
So I can make a notice of motion to that.
You could make a notice of motion later after we vote on this. It's not part of this resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vardy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that we do layoffs. What I said was we were fortunate that we haven't laid anyone off, but we have to contain our expenses. So I just want to be clear about that. I don't want everyone to think I'm suggesting that they should all be let go.
Thank you, that's clarified. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the following be approved. Number one, that the town's monthly installment date pre-authorized payment plans for taxes and water continue as usual. And two, that the penalty and interest charges on current taxes be waived until May 1st until June 30th, 2020. And three, that past due interest on water accounts and accounts receivable be waived from April 1st until June 30th, 2020. And that number four, that NSF charges on all tax and water payments be waived until June 30th, 2020. We may as well have a recorded vote. I'll request that. Councillor Bothwell. Councillor Bothwell was a yay. Councillor Dunstall. Yay. Councillor Dunstall, yay. Councillor Frake. Yay. Councillor Frake, yay. Councillor Cadwell. Yay. Councillor Cadwell is yay. Councillor Ritchie is not here, so no vote. Councillor Sharp. Yay. Councillor Sharp is a yay. Councillor Vane.
Yay.
Councillor Vane is a yay. Councillor Vardy? Yay. Councillor Vardy is a yay, and myself a yay, so that is carried. Up next, Councillor Bothwell has a notice of motion. No, procedure. Oh, first we're going to read the procedural bylaws.
Yeah, we would have to waive it.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you need a mover and a seconder? We need a mover and a seconder to suspend the procedural bylaws, just so we can get notices motions on the table. Moved by Councillor Frake, seconded by Councillor Vardy. All in favor of that? Councillor Sharp? No? All right, so it's just to put a notice of motion on the table for our next meeting. Who's in favor? What's that? And I'm in favor, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Councillor Vane? Councillor Vane?
Sorry, nay.
All right, so the procedural order is defeated. Oh, we didn't get 2/3. So I will have to bring up a notice of motion for the April 6th meeting. Need a mover and a seconder for the bylaws. Councillor Bothwell?
Thank you. So we're going to, the next discussion on the agenda is the bylaw for the electronic participation, correct? So I just
Yes,
would like to
it's-
make a comment
yeah.
on that bylaw that's being presented. It is not reflective of what we passed at the last council meeting, which was electronic participation for all meetings, not just during the emergency situation. And I clarified that very clearly when I was at the podium, that it was Bill 68 that allowed for electronic participation, and that I believe that that I was asking that the procedural bylaw be amended to allow for electronic participation at all meetings. So that was the motion that I believe was carried at the last meeting. So this.
Can we discuss this
This-
with moving motion?
This is the bylaw that we're on the agenda right now.
It's not, we haven't moved it. We don't have a motion, we're not in creative discussion.
I can lift it for separate consideration.
Is there a reason we have to lift a bylaw that's currently on our agenda for this meeting?
Yeah,
You gotta move it and second it, and discuss it, put it on the table.
It's not lifting.
Can you move and second it, and then put it on the table?
Yep.
we'll move and second it just to put it on the table. So a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor Vardy, Councillor Frank.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Again, now that we're on the table with that item, that was my understanding, was that it was passed as a procedural bylaw update for not just under emergency circumstances, that electronic participation be included moving forward. So this bylaw, I have no problem with this bylaw under the circumstances we're in now, but I would suggest that we go back to the motion that was passed at the previous meeting, and that we do move forward with including a further language within our procedural bylaw, which was passed at our last meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Yeah, so we'll leave this as is now, and then we'll review it after we're out of an emergency time. Because there's special rules done for the actual pandemic right now, so we will review our own subsequent of this. It'll just be really housekeeping and a fulsome debate later. So I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 20-31 and 20-32, and that be read a first time. Recorded vote? All right. We have a recorded vote. Oh, Councillor Cadwell, you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Because of these are uncharted water times, I guess I'm just looking for clarification. Never been through this before in my years on council, but we are following the same procedures and governance as the provinces. This was keeping it in order and in line with everything that they've approved and recommended to the municipalities?
Yes, that's what we're doing. We're following
Okay.
provincial guidelines right now. All right, I read the, Councillor Sharp? Yes, we'll get the curtains closed. So the recorded vote for the bylaws, Councillor Bothwell? Councillor Bothwell is yay. Councillor Dunstall? Councillor Dunstall is yay. Councillor Frake?
Yay.
Councillor Frick is yay. Councillor Cadwell? Councillor Cadwell is yay. Councillor Sharp? Councillor Sharp is yay. Councillor Vane?
Yay.
Councillor Vane is yay. Councillor Vardy?
Yay.
Councillor Vardy is yay, and myself yay. So that is carried. Need a mover and a seconder to, for the second round of bylaws. Councillor Dunstall and Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws number 20-31 and 20-32 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding, and again, a recorded vote. Councillor Bothwell.
Sorry, may I revisit the suspending the rules vote? Because I think the count of the number that we had was 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for it, and 3 against, so that was defeated
Yes.
on a 5-3.
Yeah, what percentage is that?
It's
That's,
5.3 and you always round up. So it goes, if you have a decimal point, it's 6 to the next full person, so it's 6 people.
okay. So it has to be 6 people, because it's 5.3.
So I'm a yay on, sorry, 5.
All right, no problem. We're getting that straight, so. Councillor Bothwell's a yay. Councillor Dunstall? Yay. Councillor Dunstall's a yay. Councillor Frake? Yay. Yay. Councillor Cadwell? Yay. Councillor Cadwell's a yay. Councillor Sharp? Yay. Councillor Sharp is a yay. Councillor Vane?
Yay.
Councillor Vane is a yay. Councillor Vardy?
Yay.
Councillor Vardy is a yay, and myself am a yay, so that is carried. All right, meeting is adjourned.